In the timeless expanse of ancient Egypt, where colossal monuments stood as silent sentinels of a bygone era, there existed a realm of knowledge that transcended the grandeur of the pyramids and the majesty of the Sphinx. It was a world that thrived in the shadows, whispered in the hush of moonlit nights, and lived on in the timeless strokes of a red pen on papyrus. Welcome to the secret world of ancient Egypt's scribes, the weight of the reed pen. The world of ancient Egypt was a land of immense stone and monumental power, but its true heart lay in the silent world of the scribe. To become a scribe was to enter an order of quiet dignity and immense influence. It was not a path of physical labor in the sun-drenched fields or the back-breaking quarry. Instead, it was a path of patience, focus, and a reverence for the written word. A young boy's journey to becoming a scribe began not in a bustling classroom, but in a small, hushed schoolhouse, often attached to a temple or a royal court. He would sit on a mat with his fellow students, the air thick with the smell of clay, dust, and dried ink. His first lesson was not in writing, but in listening. He would listen to the master scribe, an elder with a wise face and a calm voice, who would speak of the long, silent journey of a letter, the weight of a single word. The students were not taught to speak their lessons aloud. They were taught to absorb them in a profound, internal way. The first tool he would touch was not a pen, but a simple block of limestone. On each smooth, cool surface, he would practice his first hieroglyphs, each one a painstaking attempt to recreate the shape of a bird, a basket, or a serpent. He would hold the piece of stone in a small reed brush, dipping it into a tiny pot of black ink. The feel of the ink was soft and cool against the hard stone. The sound was a gentle scratching, a rhythmic scuffing that echoed in the quiet room. He would practice each glyph 100 times, 1,000 times, until his hand, his arm, his very mind knew the form of the hieroglyph. It was a meditation in motion, a deliberate, repetitive act that taught him not just how to write, but how to be still. He would work in the soft glow of a small lamp, the light casting dancing shadows on the stone walls around him. The other students were just as quiet, lost in their own worlds of ink and stone. There was no rush, no urgency. The only measure of time was the slow dwindling of the ink in the pot and the growing pile of practice stones. It was a path of repetition, of quiet mastery, a journey into the intricate and beautiful world of the written word, the language of kings. As the boy scribe progressed in his studies, he delved deeper into the language of the gods and the pharaohs. Hieroglyphics, the picture-based writing system, unfolded before him, revealing the secrets of a civilization. Each symbol became a key to unlock the mysteries of ancient Egyptian culture. The more he learned, the more he realized the immense responsibility he carried. Unlike the grand edifices that adorned the horizon, his legacy would be ephemeral, existing only on papyrus and clay tablets. Yet it was this very transience that gave his craft its unique allure. He understood that his words, carefully etched on papyrus, could outlive the pharaohs themselves, whispering tales of their glory to future generations. With each stroke of his reed pen, he was weaving his name into the fabric of eternity, but his journey was fraught with challenges. The hieroglyphic script was not merely a set of symbols to be memorized. It was a living, breathing language. It demanded an understanding of its nuances, its complexities, and its rhythms. The pressure was immense, not just to get each symbol right, but to capture the essence of the spoken word. Every curve, every angle, every line was a testament to his dedication, his perseverance, and his love for his craft. And as he navigated this intricate world of symbols and sounds, he found solace in the rhythm of his work, the quiet companionship of the papyrus, and the enduring legacy of a civilization that had entrusted him with its stories. Master of the royal archives, the grand hall of records. In the grand halls of the royal palace, amidst the opulence and the intrigue, there existed a sanctuary of silence, a place where the whispers of power mingled with the rustle of papyrus. Here, in the royal archives, the master scribe found his ultimate calling. He had honed his skills, mastered the intricacies of hieroglyphics, and now he was tasked with preserving the very essence of the pharaoh's reign. His days were spent poring over scrolls, meticulously copying ancient texts, and ensuring that each stroke of his reed pen paid homage to the original. It was a task that demanded not just accuracy, but an intimate understanding of the language and its historical context. Every scroll he unfurled was a journey back in time, a portal to a world where pharaohs walked among mortals. And as he copied each hieroglyph, he felt a sense of continuity, a link to the past that bound him to the pharaohs and the gods. The archive was more than just a repository of scrolls. It was a living, breathing library that housed the collective wisdom and history of a civilization. Here, the master scribe was not just a copier of words. He was a custodian of knowledge, a guardian of the past. The soft scrape of his reed pen on papyrus became a hymn to the ages, a requiem to the pharaohs, and a testament to the enduring power of words, the shadowy world of secrets. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the Nile, the scribe's duties took on a more clandestine air, for he was not just a chronicler of the pharaoh's deeds. He was also the keeper of secrets, the shadow behind the throne. In the hushed hours, when the palace walls whispered tales of intrigue and deception, he played a pivotal role. The pharaoh, in his moments of vulnerability, his triumphs and his defeats, confided his thoughts and plans to the scribe. These were not mere words. They were the blueprints of a kingdom, the innermost thoughts of a ruler. And the scribe bore the weight of this trust with unwavering loyalty and discretion. He understood that his pen, which danced so gracefully across the papyrus, held the power to shape destinies, to influence kingdoms, and to alter the course of history. The words he recorded were not just symbols on a page. They were the lifeblood of the pharaoh's power, the very essence of his reign. As the scribe delved deeper into this shadowy world of secrets, he became a player in the intricate game of courtly intrigue. He navigated the treacherous waters of palace politics, balancing the needs of the pharaoh with the demands of the kingdom. And all the while, his pen remained his most potent weapon, his shield and his legacy, the legacy of ink. The scribe's life was not without its privileges. He enjoyed a status that was envied by many, a respect that transcended social boundaries. He was the companion of the pharaoh, the confidant of the elite, and the keeper of the kingdom's history. His influence, though often subtle, was profound. He was the silent force behind the pharaoh's decisions, the architect of royal edicts, and the chronicler of a civilization's triumphs. And yet, despite the adulation and the acclaim, the scribe remained rooted in his purpose. He knew that his true reward lay not in the accolades of the world, but in the timeless legacy of his work. The papyrus scrolls he created were not just artifacts of his time. They were vessels of knowledge, repositories of wisdom, and beacons of enlightenment. They served as blueprints for temples, records of trade, and chronicles of the divine kings who graced the throne. The scribe's legacy lived on in the words he etched onto papyrus, in the stories he wove with his red pen, and in the history he preserved for posterity. Though his name might have been lost to the sands of time, the impact of his work echoed through the corridors of history, making him an unsung hero of ancient Egypt. From the humblest beginnings in a small schoolhouse to the highest reaches of the royal archives, the scribe's journey was one of dedication, perseverance, and a profound love for his craft. He was the architect of words, the weaver of stories, and the keeper of a civilization's memory. And as the last rays of sunlight faded on the horizon, casting long shadows over the eternal city of the dead, his legacy continued to live on, whispering tales of a bygone era and reminding us of the enduring power of the written word. The tools of tranquility. The scribe had little material wealth. In fact, the value of his entire possession could be counted on two hands. But what he lacked in riches, he made up for in something far more valuable: the clarity of a still mind. You see, his life was dedicated to a profession that demanded not just skill, but an unwavering devotion to tranquility. For this man was no ordinary worker. He was a scribe, a keeper of stories, and a weaver of time. His days were spent in the hushed halls of a great temple, the air thick with the scent of incense and the murmur of ancient wisdom. There, amidst the towering pillars and faded hieroglyphs, he toiled over his most precious materials, the papyrus scroll and the red pen. He lived in a small hut near the temple, its walls made of sun-dried mud brick and its roof thatched with palm leaves. Inside, amidst the flickering shadows cast by a small oil lamp, sat the scribe at his work table. The table was not grand, but the surface was smooth and unblemished, a testament to his careful nature. On it lay his most cherished possessions, not gold or jewels, but the simple, elegant tools of his trade. They were kept in a small, finely crafted wooden pallet, a container as humble as it was significant. The pallet was more than a mere box. It was a sacred container for the instruments of time and memory. It held his most prized possessions, each one a whisper of stories past and a promise of tales to come. Inside this humble box, nestled together like old friends, were his reed pens, each one a potential instrument of creation. They were made from the hollow stalks of the papyrus plant, the same plant whose broad leaves would eventually bear his ink. But these pens were no ordinary writing implements. They were carefully cut and honed to a perfect, soft point, allowing the scribe to dance across the papyrus, coaxing letters and images to life. The scribe's pens were his voice, the instruments through which he would bring stories to life. And next to the pens, tucked into a small notch in the pallet, were two small, circular depressions. One was filled with a small, hard block of black ink, made from soot, and the other with a reddish-brown ink, made from ochre. These inks were not just pigments, they were the essence of his thoughts, the embodiment of words yet to be spoken. The scribe would use a few drops of water from a small clay pot to rehydrate the ink, the water whispering softly as it softened the dry pigment. This ritual was more than just a way to prepare ink. It was a calming preparation before the act of creation. Each drop of water added was a prayer for focus and clarity, a plea for the stories to flow onto the papyrus as effortlessly as the water mixed with the ink. But the most important tool in his box, and the most precious, was the blank papyrus scroll. Papyrus was made from the reeds that grew along the banks of the Nile, their fibrous stalks carefully pressed and woven into thin, strong sheets. The process was long and delicate, requiring patience and precision. The young papyrus, straight from the marsh, was not fit for writing. It had to mature, to be carefully stripped and sorted, then layered and dried under the scorching Egyptian sun. The result was a smooth, light surface that felt almost like silk to the touch. When undried, it could stretch up to several cubits, offering a vast expanse for the scribe's designs. The very making of the papyrus was a testament to the power of patience and skill, mirroring the dedication required of the scribe in his craft. For the scribe, each papyrus scroll was a new world waiting to be explored, a blank canvas upon which he could paint the stories entrusted to him. His work would be done in a secluded corner of the temple or a sunlit courtyard, the only sounds being the gentle rustle of the papyrus and the soft scratching of his pen. He would work with a stillness that seemed to absorb all other noise, his mind focused entirely on the beautiful forms he was creating. The world outside, with its noise and its struggle, faded away. All that mattered was the smooth, warm feel of the papyrus, the soft weight of the pen in his hand, and the careful dance of black and red across the golden-brown surface. It was a secret world of calm, a sanctuary built not of stone, but of ink and red. As the scribe worked, the sun would move across the sky, casting long shadows that stretched and danced around him. Yet he would not be disturbed, not by the changing light, not by the passage of time. His only company, the spirits of the stories that flowed through his pen. Time, for the scribe, was not a relentless march, but a gentle ebb and flow. It was marked not by the ticking of a clock, but by the whispers of the papyrus and the soft strokes of his pen. His day began and ended with the rituals of his craft, the soothing rhythm of mixing inks, the unfurling of a fresh scroll, the graceful script as he recorded the day's events. For him, every day was a new story, a new chapter in the grand narrative of his life. As evening approached, casting long shadows across the temple grounds, the scribe would pack away his tools, his heart filled with the satisfaction of a day well spent. The pallet, now a bit heavier with the weight of stories, would be placed carefully beside his bed, ready to whisper their secrets in his dreams. Sleep came easily to the scribe, his mind still humming with the echoes of the day's work. He dreamed of dancing letters, of papyrus birds taking flight, and of the silent symphony of his craft. Each night was a peaceful retreat, a time to rest, not just his body, but the stories that surged within him, waiting to be set free in the morning light. When the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, the scribe awoke, his mind already reaching for the stories that tugged at his soul. The day was new, the papyrus untouched, and the ink waited patiently for the dance of creation to begin anew. And so the scribe's days turned into weeks and months, each one adding a new layer to the rich tapestry of his life. Through it all, his tools remained constant. The humble companions in his quiet quest to capture the fleeting moments of life. The palette, the pens, the papyrus, and the ink became more than just tools. They were extensions of his being, whispering the stories that defined his existence. The scribe has been introduced, and his world has been glimpsed. Now it is time to follow him through an ordinary day, to understand the rhythm of his existence, to see how he finds poetry in the commonplace, meaning in the mundane. He wakes before dawn, not because a rooster calls him, for there are no roosters in his modest abode, but because the soft fingers of morning light find their way through a small window, painting a sliver of the wall in silver. He stirs, his body a familiar weight under his thin blanket, his face creased with the lines of age and thought. Time has been kind to him, or perhaps he has simply learned to live with it, to find comfort in the passage of years rather than lamenting their swift flight. He rises slowly, aware of every joint that cracks, every muscle that protests, but there is no stiffness in his movements, no hesitation. There is a calm strength in his rising, a quiet dignity. He moves to the corner of his room where a rough clay pot holds water from the previous evening, and he splashes it on his face. The water is cool, a pleasant shock that chases sleep from his eyes. He cups some in his hand and tastes it, finding sweetness in its simplicity. It is water collected at the peak of night, when the moon's reflection made it pure and fresh. Then he turns to his bed, not for a final rest, but to don the simple tunic that serves as his outer garment. It is a piece of linen, its fibers spun by hand and dyed a deep blue. The color reminds him of the twilight sky, of the endless stretch of night when the world is still and secrets are whispered on the wind. He pulls it on, smoothing it over his shoulders, feeling the cool fabric against his skin. It is more than just a garment. It is a shield against the world, a quiet declaration of his dedication to his craft. For the scribe's work is often solitary, his hours spent in the quiet company of scrolls and pens. The blue of his tunic echoes the vast emptiness of the night sky, symbolizing the depths of his concentration, the boundless expanse of his imagination. As he prepares for his day, the first hints of light touch the horizon. In the distance, a new day is being born, and with it, the promise of new stories, new words waiting to be captured on papyrus. He steps out into the nascent daylight, the cool air on his skin, the sounds of the city just beginning to stir around him. He walks with a calm purpose towards his workplace, his sandals making soft thuds on the stone street. The walk itself is a ritual, a moment of quiet contemplation before the day's work. He greets the familiar sights and sounds with a serene smile, finding beauty in the mundane details of his. A fountain splashes nearby, its sound like a soothing melody, a reminder of the life that flows around him. Incense smoke drifts from a nearby temple, carrying with it the scent of distant lands and forgotten gods. The very stones of the city seem to whisper stories of ages past, and he listens with an attentive heart. As he approaches his workplace, he quickens his pace, not out of haste, but out of respect for the sanctity of the space he is about to enter. The sight of his workplace brings him a sense of peace. It might be a small room in a grander building, a niche carved into the side of a temple, or even an open space under the shade of a tree. But for him, it is a sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world fades away and only the rustle of papyrus and the scratch of the quill remain. He settles onto a simple mat on the floor, placing his wooden pallet beside him. Unfurling his scroll with reverence, he finds his place, his gaze unwavering, his hands steady. And there, in the hush of the dawning day, he begins his work. His pen moves across the papyrus with a fluid grace, guided by a lifetime of practice and a deep understanding of his craft. Each stroke is deliberate, each curve and angle precise. He writes, not in frantic haste, but with a serene focus that borders on meditation. The pen, an extension of his thoughts, dances across the surface of the papyrus, leaving behind elegant glyphs that tell their silent stories. Hours pass in this tranquil state, and yet they are not empty hours. They are filled with the creation of letters, the recording of accounts, the copying of ancient texts. Each stroke of his pen brings order to the world, preserving thoughts and transactions, weaving words into tangible forms. He works without interruption until the sun climbs higher in the sky, its rays streaming through the window and warming his face. Tiene poses not out of fatigue, but out of respect for the rhythms of the day. He takes a small piece of bread, its texture worn into familiarity by countless similar moments. Ate it slowly, savoring the taste, aware of the simple luxury of nourishment in the midst of his work. He drinks from a small clay cup, the liquid cool and refreshing on his tongue. These are not feasts, nor are they meant to be. They are sustenance for both body and soul, allowing him to continue his work in quiet, steady rhythm. As he eats, his gaze wanders to the window, watching the play of light and shadow, the movement of leaves in the breeze, or the distant bustle of the city. He sees poetry in the patterns of nature, stories in the interplay of light and dark, finding beauty in the smallest details of his surroundings. When his brief respite is over, he returns to his work, his focus unwavering, his movements economical. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows that stretch and shift across the room. Still he writes, oblivious to the passage of time, lost in the world of his craft. The hours slip by like grains of sand through an hourglass, each one leaving its mark, each one contributing to the mosaic of his life. As the day reaches its zenith, he feels the heat of the sun on his skin, but he does not falter. He works on, driven by an inner fire that has little to do with the sun's fierce glare. Slowly, imperceptibly, the air begins to shift. The sun, once a blazing orb, now starts its journey towards the horizon. The shadows lengthen, the light softens, and the scribe feels the day's end approaching. He continues writing until the light begins to fade, his pen dancing across the papyrus with a new urgency, as if eager to complete its work before the day surrenders to night. When the last stroke is made, he rolls up his scroll, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. He cleans his pens with meticulous care, each movement a testament to his respect for his tools, for the extensions of his creativity. He gathers his belongings, his heart full of the quiet joy of a day well spent. As he steps out into the cooling evening, the city around him comes alive with the sounds of commerce and community. Vendors call out their wares. Children play and the murmur of conversation fills the streets. Yet none of this noise disturbs him. He walks with a lightness in his step, his ears attuned to the music of the city, his eyes seeing the vibrant colors of the setting sun in the faces of passers. He is part of the city, yet he carries within him the peace of his solitary work, a living testament to the power of quiet. Focused living in a world that often values noise above stillness and chaos above order. Reaching his humble home, he opens the door, stepping into the familiar space that has seen countless evenings like this one. He places his things away, each action imbued with the serenity of a life lived in harmony with himself and his work. And as the night deepens, he sits down to eat, finding pleasure in the simple act of nourishing his body after a day of nourishing the minds of others. The taste of his food, the smell of incense, the sound of crickets chirping outside, all blend together in a symphony of everyday beauty. After his meal, Amy greed lost in the world of words on papyrus, or he might write letters by the dim light of a lamp, his pen scratching softly, creating connections across the miles. Or perhaps he will just sit in the quiet of his home listening to the city's nocturnal hum, finding peace in the stillness, knowing that tomorrow, when the first light touches his wall, he will rise and do it all again. And so the day ends for the scribe, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, but with the quiet dignity of a life fully lived, a life dedicated to the pursuit of order, meaning, and beauty in an often chaotic world. For him, every day is a poem written in the language of silence, and every hour is a verse that contributes to the grand narrative of his existence. The scribe's work was not limited to the mundane details of daily life. He was the bridge between the mortal world and the divine, the quiet hand that recorded the words of the gods and the deeds of the pharaohs. Much of his most important work took place within the hushed, incense-filled chambers of the temples. Here, in the dim light of oil lamps, he would copy ancient religious texts, preserving the sacred spells and prayers that had been passed down through generations. But it wasn't just about copying. It was a communion, a quiet conversation between the scribe and the divine. The scribe would prepare himself meticulously for the sacred task. He would wash his hands and feet in cold water from the Nile, a symbolic cleansing to wash away any distractions or impurities. Then he would don a white linen kilt, a symbol of purity and his dedication to the task at hand. As he entered the temple, he would leave his sandals at the threshold, a sign of respect for the sacred space within. The air within the temple would be thick with the smell of incense, each wisp carrying prayers and hopes to the gods. The flickering light of the oil lamps danced on the walls adorned with hieroglyphs, casting long shadows that seemed to come alive in the dim light. The scribe would find a quiet corner, unroll his papyrus, and dip his quill into the ink. Each movement was slow and deliberate, a dance of precision and focus. The papyrus, much like the scribe's mind, was a blank slate, ready to absorb the wisdom of the age. He would start with a prayer, a plea for guidance and protection as he embarked on this sacred journey. As he began to write, the room seemed to fade away. There was no longer any sound but the scratching of the quill on the papyrus, no other presence but the one that inspired his work. He was lost in a world of hieroglyphs, where each stroke of his quill was a whispered word to the gods. Time seemed to stand still as he wrote. In the depths of his concentration, there was no past, no future, only the present moment and the sacred text before him. He was not merely transcribing words. He was weaving a tapestry of ancient wisdom. Each hieroglyph was a thread, each stroke a color, and together they formed a rich, vibrant design that captured the essence of the divine. His quill danced across the papyrus, forming elegant loops and sharp angles with equal ease. The hieroglyphs flowed from his pen, each one a perfect rendition of the original, each one imbued with the same power and meaning. It was as if the papyrus itself was guiding his hand, leading his quill to trace the exact paths laid down centuries ago by those who had come before him. He didn't just copy what he saw. He understood the texts he was working with. He knew that each hieroglyph wasn't just a symbol, but a living, breathing entity with its own power and purpose. He respected that power and handled it with the utmost care. His understanding of the language allowed him to interpret the nuances of each text, to decipher the hidden meanings, and to convey them accurately onto the papyrus. But the process wasn't without its challenges. The ancient texts were often faded and worn, the papyrus brittle and torn. The ink had bled, blurring the lines, turning some glyphs into riddles. Yet the scribe was undeterred. He was a patient craftsman, willing to spend hours contemplating a single passage, a single glyph. He would pore over the damaged text, trying to piece together the faded strokes, trying to hear the whispers of the ancients. When he finally felt he had deciphered the text, he would write it out on the papyrus, his quill moving with a newfound urgency. The thrill of discovery fueled his movements, driving him to complete his work with even greater precision and care. As he worked, Ed would mumble the words under his breath, the sounds forming a rhythmic chant. This wasn't just a way to keep his focus. It was a way to connect with the spirit of the text, to feel its power coursing through him. The words became more than just symbols on a page. They became living, breathing entities that pulsed with energy. The scribe wasn't just a copy of texts. He was a conduit of their power, and as he chanted, he felt that power surge through him, connecting him to the scribes and priests who had performed this ritual countless times before him. The hours passed, yet the scribe was oblivious to the passage of time. He was in a state of flow, a state of complete immersion in his work. He moved with a grace born of years of practice, his body and mind in perfect harmony. He didn't think about the fatigue in his shoulders or the cramp in his fingers. He didn't hear the sounds of the temple or the voices of the worshippers. All he heard was the whisper of the ancient words, urging him on. As the last rays of sunlight faded and the shadows grew longer, the scribe's work came to an end. He looked at his handiwork, his chest swelling with pride. He had done his best to honor the ancient texts, to do justice to the words of the gods. He had wove new threads into the tapestry of ancient wisdom, and in doing so, had made it richer, more vibrant. He carefully rolled up the papyrus, placing it in a protective sheath, a silent prayer escaping his lips. He then took off his white kilt, donned his sandals, and stepped out of the temple, leaving behind the fading light and the lingering scent of incense. The night had fallen when he reached his home, the sky a blanket of stars. The sounds of the city, the laughter, the music, the murmur of the Nile seemed distant and muted. As he stepped into his courtyard, the familiar sights and sounds brought him back to the present. The lotus blossoms heavy with fragrance, the palm trees swaying gently in the breeze, the chirping of crickets a soothing melody. But the peace of the night couldn't erase the memory of the day's work. The words he had written, the chants he had mumbled still echoed in the chambers of his mind. He sat down on a low stool, the papyrus still clutched in his hands. He could unshake off the feeling that what he had done that day wasn't just a task. It was a service to the gods, to his people, the legacy of his ancestors. He looked up at the star-studded sky, feeling a sense of wonder and humility. The gods were eternal, their wisdom timeless. He, the scribe, was just a humbled servant, a vessel through which their wisdom flowed. And so, as the night wore on, the scribe pondered the words he had written, the meaning they held, the purpose they served. He was more than just a scribe. He was a keeper of knowledge, a link in the chain of tradition, a scribe who dedicated his life to serving the gods and his people. With each stroke of his quill, he wove his name into the fabric of eternity. And though his mortal life might fade into obscurity, his work would live on, a testament to his skill, his devotion, and his unwavering commitment to the sacred art of writing. For in ancient Egypt, a scribe was more than just a writer. He was an artist, a priest, a servant of the gods, a keeper of history, a weaver of words, a scribe who dared to touch the divine with his quill. In the grand tapestry of ancient Egyptian society, the scribe held a unique and revered position. He wasn't just a writer, he was a key keeper of knowledge, a translator of the divine. His work wasn't just about putting pen to paper. It was about bridging the gap between the human and the divine, the earthly and the eternal. The scribe was a man of learning, his knowledge spanning a wide range of subjects, from mathematics to medicine, law, and religion. He was the one who could read and write, a skill that was highly valued in ancient Egypt. He could decipher the hieroglyphs on the walls of tombs, unlock the secrets of the stars in the night sky, and navigate the twists and turns of the Nile River. The scribe's knowledge was a precious commodity, and he was often called upon to advise the pharaoh on matters of state. He was the one who could calculate the taxes owed by the farmers, draft up contracts for merchants, and even plan the construction of temples. His knowledge was the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, and he was revered as a wise man, a keeper of secrets. His day began before the sun had risen, and he would spend his morning in the temple, praying to the gods for guidance and wisdom. He would offer incense and make offerings of food and drink, and he would listen to the priests as they chanted and sang him. After the temple, he would go to his office, where he would spend his day recording important information on papyrus scrolls. He would keep track of the kingdom's finances, record the births and deaths of citizens, and document the laws and decrees of the pharaoh. His work was vital to the smooth functioning of the kingdom, and he took his job very seriously. But the scribe was not only a man of knowledge and responsibility, he was also a man of leisure, and he enjoyed the finer things in life. He would wear fine linen clothes and eat delicious food, and he would spend his evenings playing games with his friends or entertaining guests. He was a member of the elite class in ancient Egypt, and he knew that his work was important. But he also knew how to enjoy the fruits of his labor. As we work alongside him for a day, we will see how his skills are put to use in various situations. We will also learn about the tools he uses, such as his reed pen and papyrus scrolls, and the materials he works with, such as ink made from soot and water. We will witness firsthand the importance of his work, and how it helps to maintain order and stability in ancient Egypt. When we meet him, he is sitting at his desk in the royal palace, dressed in fine linen clothes and wearing a wig and a necklace of precious stones. He has a scroll of papyrus in front of him, and he's using a reed pen to write down the orders of the pharaoh. He is precise and careful with his writing, and he makes sure that every stroke of his pen is perfect. He knows that his writing will be read by many people, and he takes pride in his work. He explains to us that his job is to record the decrees of the pharaoh and make sure that they are carried out. He also keeps track of the kingdom's finances and makes sure that the taxes are paid on time. He knows that his work is essential to the smooth functioning of the kingdom, and he takes his responsibilities very seriously. We ask him about the tools of his trade, and he tells us about his reed pen, which is made from the reeds that grow along the Nile River. He shows us how he uses the pen to write on papyrus, which is made from the papyrus plant that grows in the marshes. He explains that the ink he uses is made from soot and water, and he shows us how he mixes the ink to the right consistency. We watch as he writes down the orders of the pharaoh, and we are impressed by his skill and precision. He tells us that he has been writing since he was a young boy, and he has spent years learning the art of calligraphy. He says that writing is more than just putting pen to paper. It is a way of communicating ideas and preserving knowledge for future generations. We ask him about the most challenging part of his job, and he tells us that it is often difficult to get people to follow the laws and decrees of the pharaoh. He says that some people are selfish and only think about themselves, but he believes that it is important to remind people of the importance of order and stability in society. As we work alongside him, we learn about the different types of work that scribes do in ancient Egypt. We meet a scribe who works in a temple, and he tells us that his job is to record the prayers and offerings made to the gods. We meet a scribe who works in a court, and he tells us that his job is to keep track of legal documents and make sure that justice is done. We also meet a scribe who works in a workshop, and he tells us that his job is to record the measurements of objects and make sure that they are made correctly. Each scribe has a different job, but they all share a love of learning and a desire to serve the kingdom. At the end of the day, we ask the scribe what he loves most about his job. He tells us that he loves the feeling of accomplishment he gets when he finishes a project. He says that there is nothing more satisfying than knowing that he has helped to bring order and stability to ancient Egypt. He leads us on a tour of the royal palace, showing us the different rooms and chambers where scribes work. He points out the different types of papyrus and ink used for different purposes, and he explains the hierarchy of scribes in ancient Egypt. As we walk through the palace, we meet other scribes who tell us about the different types of work they do. We learn that scribes are highly respected in ancient Egypt and that many of them come from wealthy families. We also learn that scribes are often educated and well-traveled, and that they are expected to be experts in a variety of subjects. We ask the scribe if he ever gets bored of his work, and he tells us that sometimes it can be challenging to find new and creative ways to record information. But he says that the beauty of his job is that no 2 days are ever the same. He also tells us that he finds the company of other scribes to be very stimulating, and that he enjoys the sense of community among his colleagues. We say our goodbyes to the scribe, thanking him for sharing his knowledge and wisdom with us. We leave the royal palace feeling inspired by the dedication and passion of the scribes of ancient Egypt. We realize that their work was not just a job, but a way of life. We understand now why the scribe was considered such an important member of society in ancient Egypt. His ability to read and write made him a valuable asset to the kingdom, and his work was essential to maintaining order and stability. We also understand the dedication and passion that scribes had for their work, and we admire their commitment to preserving knowledge and culture for future generations. In the end, the scribe would return to the tomb, not as a living man, but as a spirit, his physical form having long since turned to dust. Yet his essence, his very being, would linger within these cold, silent chambers, forever bound to the place he once made art. For the scribe's journey did not end with death. It continued in the afterlife, where he would dwell for eternity, forever a keeper of the secrets of the universe, forever a guide to the souls who entered this realm. And so the story of the scribe comes to an end, or perhaps it's just beginning. For the truth is that the scribe's journey is our journey, too. We are all storytellers, whether we realize it or not. We all have stories to tell and a duty to share them with the world. But like the scribe, we often forget that we are more than our earthly roles. We are more than our jobs, or our possessions, or our social status. We are spiritual beings on a journey through life, seeking to understand our place in the universe and the meaning of our existence. The scribe's story reminds us of this, and it calls us to action. Let us all be like the scribe, not just in our earthly lives, but in our eternal existence. Let us take the time to explore the mysteries of the universe. Let us seek out knowledge and wisdom wherever we can find it, and let us use our gifts to help others on their own journeys. Let us all be storytellers, keepers of the sacred flame of knowledge, and guides to those who are lost. Before we delve into the profound depths of today's narrative, allow me to extend a warm welcome to all those who have embarked on this journey with us. If you are new here, know that you are stepping into a community of fellow travelers, all united by our love for stories that touch the soul and expand the mind. Together, we will explore tales that have been whispered across generations, myths and legends that have echoed through time, and stories yet to be told. And now, without further ado, let us dive into the depths of today's story, a story that promises to be as captivating as the desert sands beneath the scorching sun. When he was still a living man, the scribe loved to walk among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. This was his sanctuary, his place of solace where he could escape the noise and bustle of everyday life. The gentle rustling of the reeds, the soothing sound of the flowing water, and the warm embrace of the sun on his skin brought him a sense of peace that he could unfind anywhere else. He would sit for hours, lost in thought, contemplating the mysteries of the universe and the meaning of existence. The scribe had always been a seeker of knowledge, and his thirst for wisdom only grew with time. He delved into ancient texts, poring over hieroglyphs and deciphering the secrets they held. He studied the stars, mapping their paths across the night sky and searching for guidance in their celestial dance. And he observed the natural world, finding patterns and connections that revealed the underlying order of the cosmos. As the years passed, the scribe's reputation as a keeper of knowledge grew. People from all walks of life came to him seeking wisdom and understanding. The pharaoh himself summoned the scribe, recognizing his vast intellect and discerning his pure heart. The scribe was honored to serve his pharaoh, becoming his chief advisor and confidant. The pharaoh trusted the scribe's judgment and valued his insights, making him responsible for guiding the kingdom with his wisdom. The scribe didn't seek power or glory, but he accepted his role with humility and dedication. He served the pharaoh and the people with unwavering commitment, striving to make the kingdom a place of justice and prosperity. But the scribe never forgot his first love, the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. He established a school, a place where young minds could come and learn. He taught them to read and write, to think critically, and to question everything. He encouraged them to explore the mysteries of the universe and to seek out wisdom wherever they could find it. His students became some of the brightest minds in the kingdom, carrying on the scribe's legacy of learning and enlightenment. The scribe continued to study and learn throughout his life, never allowing his thirst for wisdom to fade. He amassed a vast library, collecting scrolls and tablets from all over the known world. He shared his collection with everyone, believing that knowledge should be accessible to all who sought it. The scribe's home became a hub of activity, with scholars and students coming from far and wide to learn from him and explore the treasures of his library. The scribe hosted feasts, inviting poets and philosophers to share their ideas and engage in lively discussions. The sound of laughter and conversation filled his home, and the exchange of ideas sparked new discoveries and inspired fresh perspectives. The scribe's joy knew no bounds, for he loved nothing more than sharing his passion for learning with others. As the scribe approached the end of his life, he knew that his time was drawing near. But instead of fearing death, he embraced it as a new adventure, a journey into the unknown. He had lived a long and fulfilling life, and he had shared his love of learning with countless people. Now, it was time to move on to the next stage of his journey, to explore the mysteries of the afterlife and discover what lay beyond. With his affairs in order and his legacy secure, the scribe prepared for his final journey. He gathered his closest students and friends, and he shared his wisdom and insights with them. He talked about his experiences and adventures, and he offered guidance and advice for the future. Then, when the time was right, he left his body and his spirit ascended to the heavens. His students and friends watched in awe as his consciousness departed, and they knew that he had become one with the universe. The scribe had always believed in an afterlife, and now he was experiencing it firsthand. He found himself in a place of peace and tranquility, a place where the mysteries of the universe were laid bare before him. He continued to learn and grow, and his understanding of the cosmos deepened. He realized that death was not an end, but a transition, a doorway to new possibilities and adventures. And so the scribe continued his journey, exploring the mysteries of the universe and seeking out wisdom and understanding. He knew that his journey would never end, and he embraced it with open arms. And then, after what seemed like an eternity, the scribe felt a pull, a gentle tug on his consciousness. He turned and saw a procession of figures approaching him, each one shrouded in the ethereal glow of the afterlife. They beckoned to him, and he knew that it was time for him to move on to the next stage of his journey. Curiosity and excitement filled him, and he followed them deeper into the mysteries of the afterlife. As he journeyed through the afterlife, the scribe encountered a variety of beings and experiences. Some were familiar to him, while others were completely alien. He met wise teachers who shared their wisdom with him, and he learned more about the nature of the universe and his place in it. He also faced challenges and obstacles that tested his strength and resolve, and he discovered new depths of courage and resilience within himself. Throughout his journey, the scribe kept a record of his experiences, writing down his thoughts and insights on tablets of stone. He wanted to share what he learned with others, to help guide them on their own journeys through the afterlife. He knew that the journey through the afterlife was unique for each individual, but he hoped that his experiences could serve as a map for others, a guide to help them navigate the uncharted waters of the soul. As he journeyed further and further into the mysteries of the afterlife, the scribe's understanding of the universe expanded. He saw the interconnectedness of all things and realized that death was not an end, but a transition to a new state of being. He learned that the journey of the soul never truly ends, that there is always more to explore, more to discover, and more to learn. And so the scribe continued his journey, his heart filled with wonder and his mind open to new possibilities. He knew that he had much to share with the world, and he was eager to do so. And thus the tale of the scribe comes to an end. Or perhaps it's just beginning, for the truth is that the scribe's journey is our journey, too. We are all storytellers, whether we realize it or not. We all have stories to tell and a duty to share them with the world. But like the scribe, we often forget that we are more than our earthly roles. We are more than our jobs or our possessions or our social status. We are spiritual beings on a journey through life, seeking to understand our place in the universe and the meaning of our existence. The scribe's story reminds us of this, and it calls us to action. Let us all be like the scribe, not just in our earthly lives, but in our eternal existence. Let us take the time to explore the mysteries of the universe. Let us seek out knowledge and wisdom wherever we can find it, and let us use our gifts to help others on their own journeys. Let us all be storytellers, keepers of the sacred flame of knowledge, and guides to those who are lost. If you've made it this far, know that you are part of an extraordinary community, a fellowship of adventurers who dare to explore the uncharted territories of storytelling and myth. The bustling palace fell silent, its echoes replaced by the soft murmur of the desert wind. But one place remained where the pulse of ancient life still beat faintly, the scribe's modest home. Inside, amidst scrolls and tablets, the scribe sat, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of ages past. His once vibrant, ink-stained fingers now gnarled with age, yet they moved with the same practiced grace across the papyrus. Outside, the sands of time slipped through the hourglass, unnoticed, unknown, for he had become one with his craft. The scribe, though weathered by time, remained a steadfast beacon of knowledge. In a world that celebrated the mighty pharaohs and powerful priests, he carved out his niche as the keeper of records. His domain wasn't as glamorous as the royal court or as awe-inspiring as the temple, but it was no less vital. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of burnt umber and violet, the scribe's home took on the air of a sanctuary, within its cool, dimly lit interior, surrounded by the ghosts of countless stories. He toiled. The soft scrape of his reed pen against papyrus became the soundtrack of his twilight years, each stroke a testament to a life dedicated to the written word. As the centuries turned into millennia, the scribe's legacy endured. His meticulous records, once vital to the functioning of Egyptian society, became the bedrock of modern understanding. Archaeologists and historians alike stand on his shoulders, deciphering his elegant hieroglyphs to unlock the secrets of a bygone era. Without the scribe's patient, careful documentation, much of ancient Egyptian life would have been lost to the sands of time. His legacy is scattered across the vast canvas of history, each stroke of his pen a brushstroke in the grand mural of human progress. He left behind an invaluable gift, a window into a world that existed over 4,000 years ago. His legacy isn't measured in monuments or material wealth, but in the immeasurable wealth of knowledge he preserved. Every scroll, every tablet, every wall covered in hieroglyphics stands as a silent sentinel to his dedication. He might have been just one man, a seemingly insignificant figure in the grand tapestry of ancient Egypt, but without him, our understanding of this glorious civilization would be woefully incomplete. The scribe, the quiet architect of our knowledge, ensuring that the stories of a civilization lived on, not in the roar of crowds or the clang of tools, but in the whisper of papyrus and the permanence of stone. His legacy lives on, urging us to find wisdom in solitude, strength in patience, and meaning in the smallest details. The scribe's legacy whispers to us from the pages of history, reminding us that greatness can be found in the quietest corners, that wisdom is often born in solitude, and that the truest strength lies in the patient pursuit of one's calling. His story is a testament to the quiet dignity of labor, the undying power of human curiosity, and the unwavering spirit of those who dedicate their lives to understanding the mysteries of the universe. The scribe's story resonates with the scholar poring over ancient texts, the artist finding inspiration in the mundane, and the seeker of truth in the solitary pursuit of knowledge. His journey reminds us that wisdom is not always found in grand pronouncements, but in the patient, meticulous exploration of the world around us. So let us take a moment to honor the scribe, the seeker of understanding, and to celebrate the quiet dignity of those who dedicate their lives to the pursuit of knowledge. Let his legacy inspire us to find wonder in the everyday wisdom in solitude, and strength in the patient pursuit of our goals. In the heart of the bustling city of Thebes, where grand palaces stood as testaments to the might of pharaohs, there existed a humble abode that was home to a scribe. He wasn't a man of privilege or power, but his life was no less significant, for he was the keeper of records, the chronicler of a civilization, and his legacy was woven into the very fabric of ancient Egyptian life. His days were spent in the hallowed halls of the temple complex, where he meticulously recorded the rituals of the priests, the offerings of the faithful, and the decrees of the pharaohs. With each stroke of his red pen on papyrus, he ensured that the stories of a civilization were preserved for posterity. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, he returned to his modest home. Here, amidst shelves laden with scrolls and tablets, he continued his work. The soft glow of oil lamplight danced in his wise, aged eyes as he deciphered the cryptic symbols of a bygone era, adding his own annotations and interpretations. Despite his humble origins, the scribe had a front-row seat to the ebb and flow of power, the triumphs and tragedies that shaped his world. He witnessed the coronation of a young pharaoh, the city's joyous celebration of the annual flooding of the Nile, and the hushed fear that followed rumors of an approaching invading force. Through it all, he kept writing. His pen, a tireless witness to the passage of time. As the years turned into decades, the scribe's reputation grew. His name, though unremembered, became synonymous with accuracy and diligence. Pharaohs and priests alike sought him out for his ability to unearth the most obscure records with ease, offering him rare privileges and coveted positions. Yet he remained rooted in his purpose, content in the quiet dignity of his calling. When the pharaoh commissioned the construction of a great temple, it was the scribe who was entrusted with recording its plans, ensuring that each column, each chamber, each hieroglyphic inscription was documented with precision. He climbed scaffolding, his gaze sharp and unwavering, committing every detail to papyrus. When a natural disaster struck, it was the scribe who, with a steady hand, documented the destruction, the loss, and the resilience of the people. He became the voice of those who had lost their voices, ensuring that their stories wouldn't be buried under the rubble. But the scribe's greatest legacy lay not in the grand projects or monumental tasks, but in the quiet corners of ancient Egyptian life. He recorded the birth of a child, the marriage of two lovers, the death of a loyal pet, and the simple joys and sorrows that bind us all. He gave voice to the voiceless, immortalizing them on papyrus, ensuring that their existence, however humble, would be remembered. With the passing of centuries, the scribe's own story faded into the annals of history. The pharaohs he served became mere names on tomb walls. The temples he designed fell into disrepair, and the city he knew so well was swallowed by the sands of time. Yet his legacy endured. His records, once vital to the functioning of Egyptian society, became the bedrock of modern understanding. Archaeologists and historians alike pore over his elegant hieroglyphs, uncovering the secrets of a bygone era. They marvel at his impeccable grammar, the precision of his measurements, and the depth of his knowledge. Without the scribe's patient, careful documentation, much of ancient Egyptian life would have been lost to the sands of time. The scribe's legacy is scattered across the vast canvas of history, each stroke of his pen a brushstroke in the grand mural of human progress. He might have been just one man, a seemingly insignificant figure in the grand tapestry of ancient Egypt. But without him, our understanding of this glorious civilization would be woefully incomplete. And so we come to the end of this series, a series that has taken us through the bustling streets of ancient Thebes, into the hallowed halls of its grandest temples, and into the quiet sanctuary of the scribe's humble home. We've seen the rise and fall of empires, the triumph of innovation, and the quiet dignity of a life dedicated to knowledge. The scribe, the unsung hero of ancient Egypt, serves as a reminder that true power lies not in the thunder of chariots or the roar of the crowd, but in the silent permanence of knowledge. His legacy challenges us to find wisdom in solitude, strength in patience, and meaning in the smallest details of life. Just as the scribe patiently recorded the birth of a child, the marriage of lovers, and the death of a loyal pet, so too should we find value in the everyday moments that make up our lives. The legacy of the scribe beckons us to explore the world with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, to approach every task with meticulous care, and to preserve the stories of our time for future generations. His story is a timeless testament to the quiet dignity of labor, the undying power of human curiosity, and the unwavering spirit of those who dedicate their lives to understanding the mysteries of the universe. As we reflect on the journey through ancient Thebes, let us take inspiration from the scribe, the seeker of understanding. May his legacy remind us that wisdom is not always found in grand pronouncements, but in the patient, meticulous exploration of the world around us. To the scribe, eternal seeker of knowledge, we extend our gratitude. Your legacy lives on in every stroke of the pen, every page of papyrus, and every whisper of ancient wisdom. You may have walked the dusty roads of Thebes, but your spirit continues to guide us on our own journeys of discovery. Thank you for joining us on this journey through ancient Thebes. If you enjoyed this series, please don't hesitate to show your support. Your engagement fuels our passion for bringing these stories to life. And if you have your own tales of adventure or historical insights to share, we encourage you to do so. Your stories matter, and together we can keep the spirit of exploration and discovery alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and remember the wisdom of the ancient scribes.